According to the book of Genesis, antediluvian man lived for centuries without limits. As mankind increased and spread, the Lord said, "My life-giving spirit shall not remain in man forever. He, for his part, is mortal flesh. He shall live for 120 years. Has modern man discovered the essence of the Lord's life-giving spirit? Many hope telomeres will be the key to humanity's quest for eternal youth and immortality." Wow. You know, when I wrote this in 2012, this was like the first paper that I ever wrote. Hi, this is Mr. Titanium, i.e. Richard Wagner, your host, Richard Wagner. I am so happy to be with you. And today, we're going to discuss telomeres and the idea of longevity. Telomeres, if you don't know what they are the protective ends of chromosomes. My graduate school teacher called them aglets. And aglets are the plastic piece that prevents shoelaces from unraveling. So in the same way that an aglet prevents shoelaces from unraveling, his point was that these prevent DNA from unraveling. But nonetheless, these telomeres are very, very special, and I'll explain why. Every single time we go through replication, the replication machinery isn't exactly perfect. And the ends, the very, very ends of the chromosomes don't get copied. Just a couple of base pairs. You're not talking about a lot. And these telomeres are pretty long, 4,000 base pairs long, pretty long, So what happens is it takes a lot of replications for you to get to the very end of the telomere. But when you get to the end of the telomere, you're right at the point where you're unraveling the chromosome, and that's no good. And what happens is that the cell becomes senescent and dies. So over time, as telomeres shorten, the lifespan of the cell decreases, and eventually the cell can no longer reproduce, and the organism ages and dies. So the thought was that if you could elongate these telomeres, you could possibly extend an organism's or an individual's lifespan. But it turns out that there's one tiny little problem. Well, first of all, let me start by saying that early in development, when there's lots of cell proliferation, there's a special enzyme called telomerase. And telomerase basically puts telomeres on the end of chromosomes. And it's upregulated during early development when the fetus is in the womb. After birth, it gets downregulated mostly everywhere. And the downregulation of the telomerase is actually quite important. You see, what happens is that since cells have only a limited life expectancy, they can only replicate a certain number of times. That's one of the means that's used to prevent uncontrolled cell proliferation. So essentially, by making the cells mortal, when you have situations like some sort of mutations that result in oligiogenesis, what winds up happening, which means that you're creating little cancer cells. The key essence to cancer cells are the fact that they're immortal, which means that there's upregulation of the telomerase, which means that the telomeres never get smaller so that the cell never goes into senescence. So the telomere length actually is directly related to the onset of certain types of cancers. So whereas it may enable you to live longer, some cells, maybe you don't want to live longer. So there's kind of like a balancing act that goes on there. Now, it turns out that I mentioned that not everywhere in a person's body is telomerase downregulated. An example of that are in males and in the germline cells. Every single time we produce sperm, the sperm continues to have longer and longer telomeres. So when you have an older dad, somebody over the age of 40, I'm going to call that older, I'm really older. They're going to have, or even older, they've done studies with dads that are over the age of 60, and their offspring, in fact, have longer chromosomes, longer telomeres on the chromosomes as a result of the father's influence, genetic influence. And what we see is that there's a slight uptick in cancers that are associated with children from older dads. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to do with telomere length. You can't make a direct association because there are other things like, de novo mutations and things of this sort that happen as a result of age that could contribute to, increased cancer rate. But indeed, telomere length and elongated telomere length is associated with certain types of cancers. So elongating telomeres may not be the only aspect of what we need to elongate life. Anyways, I hope you found this discussion on telomeres interesting. I enjoyed speaking with you. And I guess the uptick is that when you hear online about people producing agents that cause the reactivation of telomerase and the elongation of telomeres, be very, very cautious about taking this stuff because you may wind up giving yourself a nice cancer. So I don't know what to tell you. Exercise, stay healthy if you can, and try to be happy. Those are my secrets. Bye-bye.